Hi guys, I have another painting analysis for you today, and this time I'm going to talk about this work, The Cheat by Georges de la Tour. There are two versions of this painting that are known today. One is in Paris at the Louvre Museum and is called The Cheat with the Ace of Diamonds. And there is another very similar painting called The Cheat with the Ace of Clubs, which is in Fort Worth, Texas. Georges de la Tour is a painter of the first half of the 17th century. He lived in the region of Lorraine, east of France, which at the time was an independent state, and Georges de la Tour was fairly famous during his life as a master of painting, but his work was dispersed after he died, and he was for a large part forgotten in the following centuries. It is only in the 20th centuries that his work would be gathered again, and many paintings attributed to him. He is famous for various paintings in a style called the chiaroscuro, a type of painting that was strongly influenced by Italian painting, the Caravaggio in particular, and these paintings were made of strong contrasts between light and shadows, and the one I'm going to comment on today is of a quite different style. If we take a look at this painting, we quickly see that there is a complex game of looks and attitudes between the characters. And this is why I picked it, because this canvas is a feast for the eye, for someone who likes to analyze or search for interpretation. The painting shows us four characters. On the right you have a young man with cards in his hands, and this young man looks relatively wealthy. He has a rich clothing, this feather in his hat, and he is participating in a game which is about to begin with the three other characters. In the center you have a woman with a rather strange face. I will come back to that in a minute. This woman is probably a prostitute. We can see that from her neckline, which for the time is quite provocative, and also because she wears pearls, which in the 17th century was distinctive or a symbol for prostitutes. On the left, you have a maid who is serving a glass of wine to the prostitute, and after the maid, a player, a cheater in reality, because the paintings makes it clear for us that he is taking a card from his belt to cheat and win the game that is about to begin. The appearance of this cheater contrasts with that of the young man because of the neglected aspect he has. You see that his sleeve and the ribbons from his shoulder are undone. When we look at the painting, we quickly understand that this is the representation of a young man, the one on the right, who is being framed by the three other characters. The three other characters are sharing glances and attitudes. They are partners, and they probably attracted the young man to the table to play with him and take his money. We can imagine that the prostitute is the one that made the young man come to the table. Maybe he hopes that the night will go on and that he will receive favors from the prostitute, and this is probably the first interpretation we can make of this painting. This painting is apparently a warning, a moral warning about the risk for this young man to fall into vice, and we have several representation of vice here. The appetite for carnal sin with this prostitute. We have alcohol with the wine served by the maid, and we have gambling with the character of the cheater. That would be a first interpretation. But what makes the painting much richer than that and more ambiguous is how this system of looks and the general presentation that invites us to be witnesses of the scene are ambiguous. In fact, the three characters are exchanging looks, and they are communicating with us. The maid, in particular, who is directly looking at us, and she belongs to this triangle with the prostitute who is looking at her and making a sign to the cheater, and the cheater himself, which in a way is forcing us to have some sort of connivence with the three characters. And another reading of this work can be much more ironic. We are participating with our silent complicity to this framing of the young man on the right, which is presented as naive, maybe almost stupid, and there is a bit of drama and comedy at the same time in the painting. One thing that was particularly popular in the 16th and 17th centuries was to establish parallels between the appearance of humans and animals. And the idea was that the morphology of faces and its similarity with animals could reflect the essence or the personality of the characters. And if we pay attention to the painting, we see that this young man has a rather bovine kind of face. He is pictured with a certain cruelty, which suggests stupidity and stubbornness in him. The Med is presented with the profile and has a very elusive eye, which reminds of rats or weasels. And on the left, the cheetah with this much tougher face and the proeminent chin reminds of a fox or maybe a wolf. And this, consciously or not, contribute to our reading of the painting. The triangle made by the three characters on the left is also rather pervert, because as I said, it invites us into the scene. We are seeing things that the young man on the right is unable to see, so we quickly understand the nature of this frame, and the perversity here lies in this connivence between them, and all the scenarios we can imagine. Maybe the prostitute and the cheater are lovers. Maybe the maid and the prostitute work together and are used to create this kind of frames. And the cruelty comes from the complete inability of the young man to understand what's going on. He is lost in his game, and the only one not to figure out that he is the victim of the scene. The face of the prostitute is another fascinating thing in this painting. The picture is realistic, but this face is absolutely not. It has a strange oval shape, no cheekbones. The face is perfectly round and apparently smooth, very white, too, and the size of the eyes or the size of the mouth look totally disproportionate, with eyes that are actually bigger than the mouth itself. There are other strange elements in this painting behind its appearance of realism. The absence of deepness in particular. The background is completely black, and the characters are like pasted on this black background. The only piece of wool we see is right behind the man on the right, like a symbol that he has been cornered by the other characters. And maybe from these elements come the very strange modernity of this painting. This is 4 centuries old. This was clearly another time than ours, but many of these elements speak to us. The very odd aspect, the weirdness of this scene, which has no background, the strangeness too of the prostitute's face, the interactivity of this game of looks between the characters and ourselves, which invite us inside the scene, and to the mix of styles between drama and comedy, which is a style in its own right today, but was extremely uncommon in the time when this was painted. The face of the prostitute in particular has driven a lot of attention from painters in the 20th century, in particular from the surrealist movement, who were fascinated, despite the time of this painting, by this eruption of strangeness and abstraction in the painting. There is another famous canvas by Delatour, which represents a quite similar theme, called The Fortune Teller, with another rich and naive man whose attention is being attracted by a bohemian, and her partner takes the opportunity to steal from the young man. But what is very special with the cheat is this eruption of metaphor in the absence of deepness of the painting, in the weirdness of the characters, and this rich game of interactions between the characters and ourselves. I hope you found it interesting and relaxing too. See you soon, my friends, and bye bye.